Right. Joining us right now for his reaction, Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School and author of the book, Guilt by Accusation, Alan Dershowitz. Your thoughts on this, Professor?
Well, first, personally, I've known Steve for nearly 60 years. We were both law clerks for the same Justice, Arthur Goldberg. I lobbied hard with President Clinton to get him nominated to the Supreme Court, and we have been close personal friends for years. The night he was nominated, he came to our house in Cambridge to celebrate the nomination. So for me, this is a personal loss. I'd love to see Steve on the Supreme Court. He was a great justice, but I knew he would retire, and I said that while he could be replaced. He has said overtly he doesn't want to be replaced by somebody who's going to destroy his legacy of 30 years on the bench. So clearly he wants to be replaced by somebody who is similar to him in voting patterns. Let's be very clear that the notion that Kamala Harris will be nominated is absurd. It will not happen. First of all, there's a question of whether or not she could be confirmed. Remember, she has to cast the deciding vote. If all the Republicans and all the Democrats stay together, it'll be a 50-50 tie. And you can't confirm a justice with a 50-50 tie. And Vice President Harris can't vote to confirm herself. Now, there may be, there's never been a situation like this, but there may be ways around that, but it will not happen. You heard it here. I predicted Kamala Harris will not be nominated to the Supreme Court. If nominated, will not be confirmed.
Professor Dershowitz, I want to ask you about, since you know him, if he had spoken to you about the pressure that he was receiving to retire and retire now, because just a few months ago, he didn't seem too amused when he was asked about it. Listen to this and then respond.
Sure.
I have thought when seeing that, if only I could write the Game of Thrones, but I can't do it.
But if you could, you would retire?
No. I think, well, let's
Because there's some people out there who would find you a ghostwriter, I think, in a minute.
Right.
What would you...
So the answer was no, but now apparently the answer is yes.
Well, I knew he was going to retire inevitably while he could be replaced by a Democratic president. Steve is a very brilliant and very fair and very honorable guy. But remember, he comes from a political background. He got his judicial appointments because he was Ted Kennedy's chief counsel. And he was somebody who appealed. He went across lines. He had good friends on the conservative side. Strom Thurmond was a good friend of his. He is very much somebody who understands Washington politics. His expertise is in administrative agency. So I never had any doubt that he would not pull Justice Ginsburg. He would not stay on the court and then be replaced by a Republican. That was, I think, inevitable. And the real question now comes up is who will replace him. I think it was a serious mistake for President Biden to announce in advance the racial and gender composition of his nominee, just like I think it was a serious mistake for him to do that for vice president. We live in an age of identity politics, and the president ought not to be exemplifying that. He ought to be picking the most qualified person to replace Justice Breyer, whether that person is black or white or Asian or Latino or male or female. And I hope he does that, though I think he's probably going to stick to his pledge. There are very, very qualified African-American women who we can pick. That's not my criticism.
Right.
My criticism
but yeah, same thing that we mentioned at the top.
Quota. He supports identity politics, which he shouldn't do.
Right.
Quick question. Sometimes conservatives are frustrated that somebody gets appointed to the court and is not as conservative as they thought they would be. Does the same thing happen for liberals, or are they usually more in line with expectations?
Well, yes. No, it happened with Steve Breyer. He became quite conservative when it came to most criminal justice issues. I argued cases in front of him when he was a circuit court judge, and he was not somebody, when I defended people who were charged with crime, who I would want to argue in front of. He was not a liberal when it came to criminal justice. I think when you're on a Supreme Court that has turned very conservative, you're more likely to fit into the image of a liberal. I mean, when I clerked on the Supreme Court, the results were not predictable.
Right.
There weren't lineups of people who you knew would vote a certain way. And so people tended to move toward the middle. Today, I think justices tend to move more likely to extremes. We can predict with absolute certainty 6 or 7 votes in almost every major case. Abortion, we know that there are going to be in favor of Roe versus Wade and 3 votes in favor of not doing it. We know who they are. We don't know who are, but it's too predictable.
All right, Professor Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.